I am Araceli, a wealth advisor, real estate investor in the United States and Canada, and creator of Wealthy Women in Real Estate. Every week, I meet with Colette, a real estate broker and a real estate investor in Canada. We come together to talk about all things real estate investing and how to increase your wealth. Join us. Welcome, everyone. This is Araceli, wealth advisor, real estate investor in the US and Canada, and creator of Wealthy Women and Real Estate. And today, with my weekly chat with Colette, we have a special guest. Colette, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Colette Rabba. I'm a real estate broker in the GTA. As you know, Araceli and I love to do this show because we love real estate and talking about real estate and real estate investing specifically. So today we have our guest, Tim Thurgood. He is a friend and also a fellow investor. And I actually met Tim through Araceli, so this is kind of nice. It's been years now, which is really great. And why we wanted Tim to be on the show. Welcome, by the way, Tim.
Thank you.
We wanted you to talk to us about something that we don't see very often anymore, but we think the information is really good to have. And Tim he's going to give us a little insight in something called syndicated mortgage today. So we have lots of questions. Do you want to start, Araceli, or should I?
Well, Tim actually has some experience with it. He's got invested in syndicated mortgages, and he's going to give us a little bit about his experience with what happened to him. And it's not necessarily what it would happen to everybody, because nothing will go wrong, but sometimes it does. So, well, go ahead, Colette.
I was going to say, let's just start with, if you don't know what a syndicated mortgage is. So do you want to tell us what, generally speaking, when somebody says syndicated mortgage to you, what does that actually mean in Ontario these days, right now?
You want me to answer that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So syndicated mortgages, I'm looking at my other monitor here just for the definition to make sure that I give you the right answer. And I got a pop-up on my screen, sorry. Basically is where a group of investors are pooling their funds to invest in real estate mortgages in order to perhaps go after a bigger project and go after higher returns as a result, because sometimes it takes money to make money. So if you have $5,000 and you're able to invest in one of these pools, you are going to get a larger return against those funds because you're putting it in with someone else who has $500,000. The downside of it is that the risks, the way it's structured, is different, and you've got to do a lot of due diligence on your own, because the legislation that covers syndicated mortgages is different than others. And you'll often get asked things like, please attest to the fact that you are an accredited investor, which means you're basically declaring that you have enough funds and you're well educated enough to know what you're doing, okay? And that's more of a technical term, accredited investor, right?
So when you're talking about something like let's say the three of us get together and say, hey, you know what, there's this, let's say, builder or developer that says, hey, you know what, give us $100,000 each of you three guys. We'll take it and we'll put it towards this condo. And we'll give you some kind of formal paperwork written up about how much you're offering and how much we think that you're going to get a return on and all that stuff. So how is a syndicated mortgage different than going to a developer or builder and investing, or as a private investor to say to an individual to say, hi, here's let's say a rent to own, or it might be going too far off the mark, but I want to see a comparison, because as far as I understand, you can't do a syndicated mortgage anymore in Ontario. It is not allowed anymore. Is that correct? Do you know?
I don't believe that statement is true. I believe that what's happened is because of some bad press around syndicated mortgages, people have just stopped.
Yeah, they're shy away from
Right?
investment.
Because they've gotten a bad name.
Or have they just called it something different? That's really what I'm worried about.
Well, then we should investigate and do some more
Okay.
reading on it. What I would suggest is, as the three of us, if we're each going to invest a basket of our own money into a single condominium, then that's just going to be a private contract between the three of us.
Right.
We might get some advice from a lawyer or from a mortgage broker to help us out, but that's just something we're doing because we're kind of family.
Right.
So to speak.
And
But
to,
let's-
okay, sorry,
let's-
as a private investor,
Uh-huh.
the three of us going into a actual condo, not a condo build, is
Yeah.
different. So we would all be on title. We would all be
Yeah.
tenants or equal, let's say equal investors, and we're all equally at risk. There isn't a second body there saying, "Give me all your money, and
Yeah.
I promise to give you all this return."
Yeah.
So that's the difference between a syndicated mortgage going to a separate entity and saying,
Yeah.
here's my money, take my money, put it in, I'll sign something, and I don't have to be on title, and you can say, oh, maybe you're going to get this much money back.
Right.
It's very different than if you go to, let's say even a developer that you're buying a new build from, and you are going to be on title of that actual unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different.
A
So
little bit different, whereas a syndicated mortgage might not only involve the three of us, but it might involve another 100 investors.
sure.
And it's because it's officially syndicated, it's covered by a body of legislation enforced by the Financial Services Commission of Ontario, FSCO. And that's a different entity. If in the first case, where it's just the three of us privately, the only enforcement mechanism we have is to show up at each other's doors and say, I'm not happy with the way things are going, and I'm going to get a lawyer.
Yeah, we have a contingency plan even before we sign to say, okay, the three of us are going to be owners of this one property. You know, one of us decides to get out, then what's within the paperwork or within the framework of our deal, we have a plan B and a plan C. Because Araceli, if you know anything about Araceli and I, we love our plan Bs and plan C.
For sure.
You always need a plan B. You can't predict the future.
100%.
That's
You know,
right.
the
Right,
pandemic
exit.
was perfect.
And a good exit strategy. So that's the
Yeah.
thing. When you go into a partnership with anybody, really, is across the board, know what your exit strategy and what your options are going to be, right?
Yeah, that's
For
right.
sure,
Yeah.
always do. But Tim, tell us a little bit about what you experienced, what happened. Can you walk us through that experience that you have with syndicated mortgages?
Well, I actually didn't invest in a syndicated mortgage. I was actually getting into these things, and I was new to it. And I was very cautious, and I went to a networking meeting that had real estate as a topic. Someone did a presentation, a look around the room, and there were a few people interested. And as it turned out, this investment person had been doing this business for a few years. So I followed up with coffee meetings and lunches. And then I asked for references. I got all the paperwork, I did some reading, and it all looked completely legitimate. So then I called the principal guy, like the CEO of the whole scheme, and I said, can you give me a list of happy investors? And he gave me a list, and I followed up with them, and they were good. Everybody said nice things about the whole thing. And this was probably 3 or 4 years into this thing working, and it had a fairly high profile, what do you say? They were very much in the public eye.
Okay.
And they had a good aura about them and a good reputation. So I invested with them, and what I got back was I chose to invest with a named property.
Okay.
Other investors were investing in that property, And what it was they were taking an old school in a vacation area in Ontario, and I won't get into the detail. They were turning it into a condominium and apartment building development with the twist is it would have access to the water and things like that and other.
Okay, and did your investment have a timeline? Was it like a set timeline that you get a return?
It did. It had the developer lined up, and it said we expect to start doing pre-sales of the condo units at such and such date, and the date was about 18 months to 2 years in the future.
Okay,
so what happened was money went in, and I started to receive a portion of the funds back because they were guaranteeing a return of something like 10 to 12%.
Okay, good.
Gee, these days I can get, up to 12%, instead of 1.0 or 0.5% at the bank, like what a great deal.
Really good.
Yeah, and it was really, really good. And then I think about 13 months into it, the money stopped arriving. So I called them up and I said, well, what's going on? And so we've got some temporary issues and, things will start going. And then I poked around, and then I saw the name FSCO in some document online, and it turned out there was some investigation going on at this company.
Okay.
So I contacted the FSCO. I sent them the paperwork that I had, and there was a lot of worrying and everything, and there were and basically, as it turned out, I potentially could have lost all of my money, right? Like gone from, I think I had invested $50,000 and I'd gone from 50 to zero, basically, right? So I waited and waited and waited. I got more news. There was a group started in Facebook. The guy who originally sold me the investment, it was interesting. He actually moved to New Zealand, which is very interesting. But then he came back and he got into the group on Facebook and he said, look, this was all legit and I lost money too. And he was, he's very bluntly honest, and he started contributing efforts to let's recover and go after the people at the top who had gone bad, basically was the story that came out. So I went to a couple of meetings at a law office in Toronto, and I turned to the guy next to me and I said, so how much did you invest? And he had invested well into the 7 figures.
So the collateral, that's the one thing I didn't hear from you. What did they say? You give us this investment and then you'll get what is collateral?
What I got in my case was my name on a mortgage on a property.
Okay, so you were on title. So
I was right on title.
Leverage, correct?
Right.
Okay.
And I was more or less fine. Because
okay,
that
so what happened in the end? Well,
what happened in the end basically was that I got all my money back.
Okay, great, but no 10%.
No 10%.
Okay. Okay, and sorry, just to go back to, you mentioned FSCO, which is Financial Services Commission of Ontario. So we do have governing bodies somewhat to protect us as investors, but really when it comes down to it, know the paperwork you're signing. Like, this is really, if you don't feel comfortable, and you did everything right as far as I can understand. You did your due diligence, you searched the people, found out about the property, you found out you had your name on the collateral, but as being on title. So, but this is the thing that, as investors too, why we like to, I'm talking for myself, honestly, we like to invest in hard property because ultimately at the end of the day, you have a piece of land, you have that, your name on title.
Yeah.
So if whatever that is, if you was it a possibility for you to hang on to that piece of property and have your name on it and then just continue to do something else with it, like rent it or resell it at a higher rate years from now? Was that a possibility even?
I think it was, I think that, like, what I wanted was to convert some funds into cash flow, because the only other thing I could do with that money was to throw it in my RSP, boring, or put it in a GIC at the bank, which
as far as low risk.
Yeah, so I could make 0.7% or something like that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, people that are in a certain range, either they have maximized their RSP or the TFSA, or they want to, or they need some cash flow, and they have excess funds. They're always looking for some type of investment which is going to give them a little bit more return, which is very logical. And some of these, if you don't have enough money to buy the entire property, or you don't want to manage it, some of these type of investments are coming out everywhere that they'll give you a portion of the investment so you can get some cash flow on an ongoing basis. Right. But some of them have gone bad, right?
Yeah. And I was kind of predisposed to do this anyways because I have real estate background from when I was a kid. My dad was a broker. He was an investor. He owned a car dealership. He was into all sorts of stuff. And he owned a mortgage, or actually multiple mortgages on houses when I was, in the 70s as a kid. And I worked in his real estate office, and I was very familiar with a lot of the concepts and a lot of the things that are done around real estate, and I was very comfortable with it as well. But even when everything looks good and the guys are good, remember, bad things can still happen, and sometimes it's just plain random, right? Right.
And the one thing that I see for the average, let's say, buyer right now is when people invest in a condo and it's a pre-built condo, but they don't do the research and they don't get a lawyer to protect themselves, and the condo doesn't get built for whatever reason. And it's happened many, many times with larger companies too. And that's very hard to protect yourself against that. And well, not to protect you, are protected. The government protects you, but also it's very hard to recover the money because the process, let's say you have a building with 500 units. They have this huge influx of saying, okay, well, shit's hit the fan now. What do we do? And we have to give back all this money to all these people. It takes a long time.
Yeah. And there are project delays. Typical example is the guy who is the owner of the project, who's allowed, say, 70 or 60% of the project to be funded through some mechanism like a group of private investors or syndicated mortgages, whatever the structure. That fella's running it, and then suddenly there's a labor dispute. Okay, so as soon as that happens, the general contractor is kind of stuck, or perhaps the general contractor is problematic. Whoever you blame on it. Let's say there's health issues with people and something happens.
Right.
The whole project gets delayed. Right.
It could come from the municipality saying, oh, you know what? You want this. Yeah, you want to make a change now at this. Exactly. Yeah. There's lots of delays. So within certain contracts, especially with condos, they give you up to, I believe the law is up to 3 delays, and they all have a set time frame. So it can no longer be whatever the time frame they are allowed. I believe it might be 6. Don't quote me on this. It might be 6 or 9 months per delay. So you're up to 3. So that's like another 2 years. So if you really think I have to get my money out, you want to liquidate, you want to get that money back in your pocket to invest in something else. Sometimes you just have to have your plan B to say, okay, well, I have to leave it in for another 2 years. So don't, have that guy knocking on your door that he wants to break your legs if you don't pay it back on time.
You have to get to that point. But this is fantastic. Thank you so much, Tim, for sharing this with us. And the moral of the story here is that as an investor or as an aspiring investor, is make sure that you understand the rules of what you're investing in, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, whatever it is. Please do your due diligence. If you don't know, contact people that have done it before so they can give you and share your their experience with you, so you know the risks. So there is always risk, but if you do it correctly, most of the time it'll be okay, right?
Always talk to a lawyer too. We can't stress that enough.
Yeah, because the law changes, everything changes as we go along. So what we can tell you today is right, it might not be in a year from now. So thank you, Tim. I would really appreciate you coming to share your experience, and we will see you in the next episode.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you for being here on the show. Please remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified when there are more shows available. And if you would like to have more information on how to start investing in real estate, please visit my website at www.aracelihernandez.com. Thank you.